Okay, so I'm here. I've got a nice cup of coffee. I'm the boss. And we're going to be talking about what's wrong with Doctor Who. Let's find out. Okay, so slightly different video here today. We're actually in the studio itself where a lot of our videos are put together. No blue screen, no backdrop, nothing. And the reason for that is I wanted to do something very, very different today, so there'll be very little editing of this video. Hopefully it'll just go out as I've put it together. I've been looking a lot at YouTube, as you do a lot of research and look for different things, and there are pages and pages and pages of videos that tell us all about what's wrong with Doctor Who, different things that people are getting really vented and angry about on the new series. So what I thought I'd do is give you my opinion on what I think's wrong and where I think it's headed and the reasons why people are saying the things that they are, and just kind of fill in my thoughts on that. So, first of all, the big question: what is wrong with Doctor Who? Okay, big massive spoiler if you didn't know this. I'll tell you now, nothing. There is nothing wrong with Doctor Who. Has it got problems? Oh yes. Oh yes, it has. But there is nothing wrong with Doctor Who. Quite simply because you don't own it. And neither do I. You can have an opinion on it. You can stop watching it if you like. But you are not there making the decisions on this programme. They need to take your thoughts into account. Of course they do. They want you to watch it. No audience, no programme. Simple as that. But they are following an idea, a narrative, a way of putting the show together that they think is the correct way to go. So saying that there's something wrong with the show and the show is this and the show is that is not really your place to tell them what their show should be. You can't do that. Does that close down freedom of speech? I don't think so. I think you have a right to say what you want, but to demand in the way that people are doing, in this kind of toxic, fueled response to the show, is quite it's quite nasty. Now, it's not new. This has been going on from day dot. We even know that there's a video out there from the 80s with Chris Chibnall sitting there telling the writers what's wrong with Doctor Who. Even there, I would say that, again, he can say that and they need to listen to him, and he had an opinion. Doesn't make him right. Now, I want to look at some specifics now. So I've got my computer screen just here. You can't see that one. I've put this one up just for decoration. It looks a bit nicer than what I'm looking at. So I've got YouTube up here on my screen, and all I did was I typed into the YouTube search bar Doctor Who Series 11, and up came a variety of different things on there. My videos didn't come up, by the way. Maybe that's because my viewing figures are quite small at the moment, being a fairly new project, new channel. So the usual names popped up, first of all. But then you get lots of videos. I mean, there's a video here that I'm looking at, which is, I don't even know who it's by. I'm not going to tell you who they're by because I think that's unfair. But this one has got over 200,000 views, so it's quite a big channel. I don't know what the video is about because I'm not putting it on, and it doesn't say anything derogatory in its line. But then the bit I'm looking at is the 4,720 comments underneath, and they vary from things like, let's read one here. I've watched Doctor Who for a long time, as I'm 43. This series is the worst series I have ever seen. It's got nothing to do with the Doctor being a woman. It worked brilliantly with Missy. This series is boring. Okay, that's an opinion. I presume they're talking about Jodie Whittaker here. She is horrible. She has absolutely no charisma. She brings nothing, and the writing is horrible. Capaldi deserved better. Again, that's somebody's opinion. No wonder we haven't seen the Daleks or Cybermen. They know the Doctor is dead. Okay. And it goes on. And there are tons and tons and tons of different things here. Hello from England. I'm embarrassed by the new Doctor and wonder who actually watches it. Well, several million, actually. Everything... Somebody needs to learn to write coherent sentences here, but everything... Oh, right, okay, yeah, I understand that now. Might need a bit of grammatical sorting there. Everything the politically left do, they ruin. And most of these, as you go through, are really just negative posts. Now, there's nothing wrong in being negative about something if you don't like it. You know, the freedom of being able to put out your thoughts out there is the reason why these things exist. But the problem I have with it is this, in a nutshell, is that this show cannot and will not be your own product. It can't be. It's trying to appeal to a massive different audience, and you can guarantee that they will have sat down with Chris Chibnall at some point, the BBC head bosses, and talked about his vision for Doctor Who, along with a very, very long list of things that they want to see in Doctor Who and what they think needs to happen. So he will have had to adopt all of these ideas and put it together into the show. Now, I can tell you from experience that the BBC are really passionate about Doctor Who. You might not think so in these comments and the way people are being negative. They are really passionate about this particular show, and they have a vision for it which may not match yours, which is where the problem lies. And the reason why I say I've got experience with that is because of doing little bits of work for the BBC and work for Big Finish. As you can see, I've got a music studio here, and I've done some sound design work with Big Finish and with other projects as well, but mainly with Big Finish. And when you work on stuff like that, you are always under the scrutiny of the BBC. Everything that Big Finish put out has to go past the BBC first. Now, Big Finish have been allowed a little bit of leeway, probably more than the TV show has, which is why they can kind of broaden out things and change things up a little bit. But they still have to comply with what the BBC want for their product. Now, so in editing, in every element of that, the BBC have a hand in. Let me give you an example. One of my jobs that I had to do for one of the products that was released was to edit up all the interviews. You get a product where the CD goes out, and in some of them, what they try and do is they fill the CD up with little interviews and things that go on there, and the length of those is determined by how much space is left on the CD. So you might get told, right, you need to edit all these interviews down into a little package for 15 minutes because that's what's left on the CD. So that's just logistics. But there was an interview done on one of the ones that I did, which was with Fraser Hines. Fraser might be watching. I very much doubt it, but he might be. Hello. And he talked about his time in the TARDIS and different things that were happening that were relevant to the particular CD that was going out at the time. And my job was to kind of edit out bits that weren't uninteresting or whatever. Not that Fraser's ever uninteresting, but for the runtime, you have to kind of edit things down. And then that is presented to Big Finish, who look at it, and that's fine, and then it goes off to the BBC. Now, there was one particular part of the interview that Fraser talked about, and I'm not going to tell you what it is because it was removed. But the reason why it was removed was because he said something that the BBC felt didn't give quite the right image for the show that they own, and for the standards that they have. Now, that was nothing against what he'd said. He was retelling a story of something that had happened, and they just felt that it would give the wrong impression to that. Another edit that came out of it was that some of the stuff that they put out, they actually recorded little samples of what was happening in the studio, and they go on there, so you can actually hear the actors being recorded rather than being recorded straight down a microphone like this. Somebody'd put a tape recorder in the room just so you could get the ambience of the room to get the feeling of, oh, something exciting's happening here. And I edited that up and sent it off. And there were a couple of edits taken out of that because it showed too much of what was going on behind the scenes of things that they don't really want the public to know. Now, I can't tell you what that is, but it's really nothing that exciting. And if I was to tell you what it is, you'd probably say, we probably knew that anyway. But they felt that was not within keeping with what they wanted to do, so it was cut out. And it happens all the time. There's footage cut out of episodes all the time. There are bits chopped and changed from 1 minute to the next. It happens. Now, my point is that the BBC have total control over this product. Now, if you look at how the series has been going, and then you watch things like series on Netflix and places like that, you'll see that there's a kind of mirroring of how it's put together. Now, that's just my personal opinion, by the way. In fact, all of this is just my take on it. Okay, you don't have to agree with anything. I'm just kind of putting my thoughts out there. So yeah, Doctor Who is kind of heading more towards the kind of series that you would see on things like Netflix, because it's got to kind of match that kind of standard, that quality of series. Now, you could argue that the quality of it is up and down, or it's not as good, or it's worse. That's fine, but these are the things that are driving this forward. So it's almost like the Doctor Who has probably been taken over by, rather than producers and directors putting together something, it's probably been taken over by a panel of people who have a criteria that they're working to. So where do we think this sort of thing has started? I would say that this didn't start with Chris Chibnall. Everybody's putting everything on here. You can see quotes. Let's just find one that says Chris Chibnall on it. Oh, right. The Cybermen and Daleks wish they were as deadly to the Doctor as Chris Chibnall is. Ouch. Ouch. That's quite cutting. But the problem's not him. I really don't believe that the problem is him. The problem, I would say, is this drive from right at the top. And like I said at the beginning, although I'm saying to you now, this is the problem. Remember I said at the beginning of it, there's nothing wrong with Doctor Who. There isn't. It's the way it's manufactured and the way it's being put together that is throwing some people off, because they feel like they own this show and it's theirs, and they're pulling it away from you. I'm sorry I'm rambling here. This is one of these sort of videos where I'm just going to talk and just get on with it, and most people will have tuned out after 2 minutes, but there you go. Team of people making decisions on things, and I think it probably started midway through the time that sorry, brain's gone. Let's have a quick sip of coffee and think about this one. Yeah, round about the time that probably Peter Capaldi came in and Stephen Moffat was in charge, I think probably at that point the people at the top of the BBC probably stepped in at that point and brought in a team of people to say, right, what do we want to do with this show? How do we want to change it up? And they'll be looking at lots of different things, what people are saying, what's going on. Ratings do come into these things, so if the ratings are slipping or changing, they are an issue to them. Although contrary to what you might have been told by some of these YouTube videos that you see on here, despite what you might have heard on there, the ratings are not dropping. They go up and down over a series, and they do kind of tail off, but that is common. Very common. If you compare this series to other series, and I know other people have done this, if you go to Council of Geeks site, Nathaniel has done a whole video on this because he got so fed up with people asking him, the ratings are dropping, so he does a comparative. So if you look up Council of Geeks, you'll find it. I don't need to give you links to that, do I? I might do. We'll see. But he actually breaks it down, and it comparatively, it's doing fine. It's doing fine with the other stuff. If you talk to the people that watch it, maybe that's changed. So, if you've got 10 people who were big Doctor Who fans who've got this idea of how Doctor Who should be, suddenly throw in the towel and walk away, they may have picked up 10 other people who are now fans of this show that never were before. So it kind of balances itself out. And you can't feel hurt over that, because that's just the way it is. That's just the way they're going to do this. Now, as I say, I think that happened in kind of Stephen Moffat's time. If you look at the very last series that Stephen Moffat did, the tone of it and the style of it changes completely. Now, I'm just throwing a guess out here, but I would suspect that Stephen Moffat and Chris Chibnall had some sort of conversation about his view and his direction, and along with these people at the top, have said to Stephen Moffat, right, you need to start bringing your version and Chris Chibnall's version nearer to each other. Imagine if you'd have gone from, say, the end of Matt Smith's run, when he had his regeneration and we were on the planet of Christmas, or wherever it was, Christmas Town, Trenzalore, wasn't it? Trenzalore, yeah. It just came to me. Trenzalore. Imagine that, going from that, and he'd regenerated then, no Peter Capaldi, straight into Jodie Whittaker and into this particular series that you've got now. That's a heck of a change. That's a massive, massive change. And my gosh, you'd have been moaning then, because the gear shift would have been absolutely huge. If you look at the very last series when Bill came in, they've toned it right down. They've changed things up, and it becomes a slightly different series. So the Doctor isn't this great almighty godlike figure. It's diminished down to the kind of essences of the series. Now, I particularly liked Series 10. I thought it was great, apart from the monks. Didn't appeal to me that at all, and that to me was a better series. There will be people out there. There'll be people watching this now who will be going, "You're talking out your backside. It was rubbish. Blah 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 blah." Well, I don't care. I tune in just as much as you do, and I take a series and episodes on board for what I like, and for what I want to watch. And if I didn't like it and I wasn't happy at all, and I felt that this series has lost me completely, off it would go, which would be a shame. And I'm sure it's a shame for other people out there who feel lost with the direction that it's going in. But that's life. You know, you can invest a lot of time in these things, and then suddenly it's taken away from you. Whether they'll listen or not is another matter. Because at the end of the day, ratings, profit, durability of a series, longevity, all these things come into play. And that's just a fact of life. That's business, that's television. You think of how many series that people have really got invested in and they just get cancelled on a whim. This one's still going. Now, so that's part of my take on it. The other one is this. Bear with me, right? I wonder if any of you have ever played darts. I have. I'm not a great darts player. I like playing darts occasionally. And not being a professional, one of the things that I learned was that when you throw a dart in a dartboard, is that your first one is usually trying to get into the right area where you want to go. So if you want to hit double 20 or treble 20, you throw it and it might hit 5. So you know on your next throw, if you want to get the 20, is you're going to have to adjust it slightly. So your first one is trying to gauge in the right area. That's why I think series... excuse me. Sorry if I did hurt your ears there. I've just knocked my microphone over. But Series 11, okay, brand new exec producer. Everything's changed. Nobody in there from the original run. Well, not the original run, but you know what I mean. From Series 10 onwards, okay? Whole new package, whole redesign, everything. And they're gauging. So they've thrown their dart, which is Series 11, and they've hit 5. Okay? You might think they've hit the wire and it's bounced out. That's your opinion. But let's just say they've hit 5. What they need to do then for Series 12 is to adjust that to get it into that treble 20 that they want to hit. Okay? So they will be then taking it apart and thinking about it and saying, right, the things that didn't work, we will change. Now, you'll probably watch Series 12 when it comes round and think, well, they haven't changed anything. That's because they may not have changed what you think is not right with it, or that you know doesn't appeal to your way of thinking what Doctor Who should be. I think one of the big problems that a decision that was made, and again, like I said, it's not there's anything wrong with it, but it was a decision that was made, and I think it's a wrong decision. You may think it's a good decision. We'll have to see. But the wrong decision for me would be the fact that they have made a decision this year to not put any classic monsters in. That you've lost the link because you've severed everything from its past. We know we get the reverse the polarity was thrown in there last week. We know that other references to the the Venusian kung fu or whatever it is, has been in there. The odd reference to things from before, but something just stable. I mean, how far could you have gone with this? I mean, at the beginning of the series, we had the TARDIS had blown up and disappeared, and then by episode 2, they brought it back. What if they hadn't? Would that have been a step too far? What if they'd suddenly decided that the Doctor was just going to just stay on Earth? Or maybe get a vortex manipulator or something? Or the TARDIS had changed completely. The exterior was no longer a police box. In their meetings, they will have decided what are the key elements of Doctor Who, and they will have probably said things like TARDIS, police box, time travel, sonic screwdriver, elements like that. They will have made that decision that that's what makes Doctor Who, and everything else will have been decisions on, well, how do we want to change the way it works? How do we want to move things along? Somebody somewhere will have said, we need more historicals. We need to educate children. And some of these things are not driven by the fact of what the series wants. The BBC are under a lot of pressure as well for being responsible. They are not Netflix. They are not ITV or CBS or any of those companies. Okay, it's funded by the public. It is a public funded channel, so therefore it has a responsibility to those people that it serves. Rightly or wrongly, they will have a charter of what the BBC stands for. That may have changed over the years, and if that's changed and Doctor Who is not following that, then it's not following its core directive, if you like. So what I'm trying to say here is that some of this stuff has got to stop. It's not that you shouldn't stop having an opinion, but some of it is just really, really dangerous and really nasty approach to things. Here's another one. How to write a Chibnall Doctor Who story. Number 1, white man bad. Number 2, lecture the audience on how terrible they are. Number 3, have a large ensemble of characters who aren't developed and are as bland as Wonder Bread. Realise halfway through writing your story that you forget the monster. Then insert a generic monster to save your story. Number 5, America bad. Number 6, study and analyse classic Who and learn what makes it so good, then do the exact opposite. Okay. So what are we to derive from this very long video? I may edit this down because it's very... I don't know. I might just put it out as it is and just see what people think. It's up to you. You know, you might not still be here. I might be down to no viewers by this point. But I'm going to say it anyway, so who cares? It's my channel. Sue me. If you dare. Okay. So what are we to take from this? I would be interested to see how Series 12 goes from here, and what it takes and what it leaves behind. That will be the indicator that they're either listening to you or they're not. So Series 12 will tell you more about whether they're being driven by circumstance and the BBC's charter and the way that the BBC's direction wants to be, or whether they're actually listening to certain members of their audience. But it's a family show. Everybody is trying to be catered for here, and you will never ever get it right. I could sit here and argue all day with you about why Love and Monsters is not the worst Doctor Who episode ever. Now that's controversial for you, isn't it? Because it's not, in my opinion. So, can we please, in summing up, can we please have a bit more thought and consideration about what's going on here? Because there's nothing wrong with Doctor Who itself. It's just that it's changed in a way that you perhaps don't feel is right. It's not ticking all the boxes for you. But is there ever an episode or a series that actually ticks all the boxes for you? And I would say give Series 11 the benefit of the doubt and allow it to develop, allow it to grow, and see what Series 12 brings, and see if that shift comes back to more the sort of things that you think make it Doctor Who. I personally don't think it's veered that far off. I do think there are things that need to change. And I'll probably do a proper video on that sort of thing. But it is what it is. You know, if we don't watch it, it's going to go off air, and it won't come back. If the death nail gets put into it, I can tell you this now, it will not come back. Do they need to get some things right? Yes, go away and have a look at it and try and see what you can do with it. But that's only as an aesthetic thing about the direction in which the programmer wants to go. It's not actually Doctor Who itself that is the problem. This could have sparked a whole debate, and it would be really interesting to see what your thoughts are on that. Down there below this video, type me something out. Don't be rude, don't be nasty, because I just won't answer you, or I'll ignore it, or I'll even block you, actually, if you're that toxic. If you've got something to say that is saying that I'm wrong, or saying that you think something different, fine, I'll listen. And occasionally I might even say, do you know what, you're right, hadn't thought of that. And that's fine. But if you're going to get nasty about me or the program or the people that on the program, don't do that. You know, if you want to say something about Chris Gimnall's writing or the way he's leading the show, fine, you have a right to say that. But any Chris Gimnall is this or Jodie Whittaker is that, not interested. Not interested in those sort of nasty comments. But you generally want to have a chat about it, fine, pop it down, I'll listen. And I guess we're done. Crikey, that's a long one. So, until next time, take care.